of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Evening, everyone. This is the March 21, 2023 meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board. And in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by posting on the City Hall bulletin board and by notification to our newspapers of record. And I ask the Secretary to please make this announcement part of the public record. And Don, if you would, roll call, please.
Mayor Chimpati? Here. Mr. Timbers?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Torres? Mrs. Joyce? Present. Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Pina?
Here.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
And Michael McKenna. Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Manners?
Here.
And Secretary here.
Okay, thank you, Donna. We have minutes of February 21. For motion? Second, all in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Minutes are approved, thank you. New business informal review, Michael Monroe, Jermaine Gonzalez. Someone here representing that?
Mike Monroe, I'm an architect. I was retained by the owners of the property, and the title is actually Jermaine Gonzalez and Nancy Pelez. And I just was hoping to give you an opportunity to discuss the project ahead of time tonight, if possible. Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of the owner.
Okay. Have you had any conversation with our engineer yet about the project?
Yes.
I'm sure he's.
Yes, been very helpful.
Thank you.
So it's, I don't even have a good survey of the property, so I don't even have a lot of foundation documents to start our engineers and some other things. I just wanted to bring roughly our program, what we were thinking before you, and get some feedback ahead of time, so the project would be a success before we start with engineering and things like that. So I can describe the project, or, okay. Yeah, this property was purchased from the city, I think for $30,000, vacant property right now. It's a corner property on One White Horse in Hamburg. It's about 24,000 square foot piece. And what my client would like to do with it is to put in a restaurant, roughly about a 4,000 square foot building. He's thinking probably like a Tex-Mex type restaurant. He's in the client is in the building business and also in the food business a little bit, so they know him through the building business. We're thinking about a restaurant with roughly 60 seats and also a bar. He's looking into acquiring a liquor license. He says he'll probably have that within 6 or 8 months. I'm not involved with the liquor license part of it, but he just wanted to let you know that that would be part of the plan. If that's a good thing or a bad thing. It'll make the restaurant more successful. And he's also looking for a possible, he originally wanted to do 2 apartments above, doing a mixed use type of thing, and then we talked about some of the difficulties in that. And he'd be willing to look to do just 1 apartment, an owner's apartment, for someone running the operation, an owner's apartment, so it wouldn't be for general rent outside people. So if possible, he'd like to get an owner's apartment on top of the restaurant and 4,000 square foot restaurant. I roughly laid out the site based on general zoning constraints and your parking ordinance and
Keith knows about it, it's fine, sorry.
I roughly laid out 30 spaces. I originally gave you a set of drawings, there's 4 sheets, there's a cover sheet on, just based on a tax map on the A1 page. And then I outlined some of the zoning information, and then there's a little bit of confusion about the zone, but we went over that. And then there's a floor plan and an elevation, and then subsequently, in your packet, there's a secondary elevation that I did today that wasn't done ahead of time. It's a similar size building, but with a wraparound porch on it, which I actually like better. The client likes a porch. Everybody likes being outdoor dining. Everyone wants to be indoors for anything, especially a day like today. Even you have to be a great day to be outdoors. So he's given me free rein to design whatever we want to. I just want to get your input on it. I like this version of it with the porch better. Make it look like it's an adaptive reuse of an interesting old building, other than just like a Perkins restaurant that popped up, or a fast food restaurant or something. So I read through your architectural guidelines about corner lots, maybe having a tower on them, your roof pitches that are preferred. I sorted through a bunch of those things. So we're very flexible, obviously, but this is the type of flavor. It's a one-story, but I wanted to make it feel like it's on the gateway. It's in the gateway rehabilitation zone, but it's also right on the edge of a big residential area. So I like the fact that it feels a little bit residential in scale and size. And we may or may not also do a basement under it, depending on the water table. I have no information on that. But the whole restaurant is lifted up, which I like better. When you're sitting outdoors, it's nice to be probably too low when you're next to a street. That way I can still have to get some vegetation, some landscaping out front, and then it's a little nicer to look down, and it makes for a little better experience. And like I said before, so this would be our preference, a wraparound porch. We can meet any setbacks that you want. Sometimes there's a strict setback based on the zoning requirements, and other times you want to maintain a streetscape. So I'll review that further. As we look at the other buildings in the area, we're flexible, obviously. We're happy to maintain any sort of streetscape. There's only one other property, I think, on this one piece of block, catty corner, a little one-story building, but there's some other buildings across the street. So other than that, I figured, a 40 to 50 seat for this size building. We've done a fair amount of restaurants, country clubs in our practice over 30 years. I've done these types of facilities. For these types of restaurants, it's generally about half front of house, half back of house, generally split for what you need. And then for the dining area, it's usually one person for 15 square feet, and the bar is probably about 30 people in the bar, that I figured. So we want to keep it under 100 just for sprinkler issues and some other. If we stay below 100, we don't have to sprinkle the building, but we're not adverse to that. Our partner may force us into sprinkling the building anyway. But in terms of what the client's looking for and the intensity and type of use, that's what we'd like to have. Roughly less than 100 people inside, and the porch will be a seasonal outdoor dining area when it's appropriate. And I think it'll be nice. It'll be a nice place to show activity and be a nice gateway structure for the neighborhood. Other than that, I'm open to any sort of questions or any feedback that you might have, or any additional information I can provide for you. I'm happy to do that.
I was gonna say, if you'd like, I'll start with just sort of go through some of the technical stuff, and then you guys want to offer any comments or technical thoughts or whatever.
Thanks, Ryan.
Sure. So, I think for the apartment above, you would likely need a use variance. The zoning, we would interpret the zoning to be a highway commercial zone. I know it showed as a redevelopment area on the zoning
As an
map.
overlay zone?
Well, so the zones, or the redevelopment areas, the city has typically interpreted as, if you're the designated redeveloper, that's the zoning that applies to you. So the redevelopment areas have included outside lots, with hopes of consolidating at various points in time. So whenever someone has approached the city with a parcel that's in a redevelopment area, and they're not the designated developer, we've sort of gone back to what the prior zoning was before that overlay was put there. So we would interpret this to be in the highway commercial zone. Permitted uses in the highway commercial and retail commercial zone are both allowed. The reason I think you would need a use variance for the apartment is that technically senior housing on the second floor above is permitted, but not general housing. So it wouldn't be a major deviation, but I think we probably wouldn't need a use variance for that.
Okay.
Based on the concept plan, it looks like you'd have some setback variances. Front is the one that stands out to me the most. I think there's a 50-foot setback in highway commercial. You're showing 20 and 20. I don't think that's a deal breaker, but you'd have to obviously ask for it and be granted that relief. Storm management is the other thing that sort of jumps out to me. You don't have any accommodations for that, and that will definitely come up. Egg Harbor City is completely in the Pinelands area, so any application will have to go through the Pinelands Commission. I don't know if you ever had to work with them before. But they'll have to meet all of their rules in addition to the normal standard DP. So
landscaping stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
one per 3 seats for the cars everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the ordinance sort of calculates it different ways in different places, but that's all sort of math we can run through. There's landscaping buffer requirements, and we do have landscaping showing concepts, so, you know, we can sort of help guide you there. But yeah, like I said, I think your two biggest things are the use variance, if you're dealing with that apartment upstairs, and then dealing with setbacks and stormwater management. I think those would be the major obstacles. And then, you know, obviously, if the board has any comments for,
So there's no estimate of stormwater management, but,
I mean,
is there anything drawn on here that,
I don't see anything that represents stormwater management. I mean, you can always do subsurface stuff, it just costs more.
Yeah, it's my post-development versus my pre-development, right? You do the balance, there's not much pre-development, so
Yeah.
you have to deal with that amount of water. In this case, if I'm gonna use that much for parking, I had to go to the side yard, I gotta do under the storm system, which is expensive, it's a little bit of money.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have good parking layout, you could do pervious paving, you can do those chambers underneath. Like I said, it's definitely more money. When you're looking at just a site layout in general, usually like a 7-to-1 ratio, area dedicated to basin versus the rest of the site is about where you're gonna be. You get to 10-to-1, you get like it's gonna be really tight. So I mean, they have nothing surface shown, so I think they would definitely need some more area dedicated to that. You know, you may be able to accomplish it with subsurface, but you're starting with very little, you know, almost no impervious coverage. You have some dirt in that turnaround area,
Right.
and then some woods and grass in the back. So I think you would have pretty significant, you know, volume that you have to deal with. Site,
Trade off some parking, and then open up some more free space.
Yeah, I mean, you may end up losing a row, somewhere to accommodate a basin. Excuse me, it might be a combination of surface and subsurface to make it work. But yeah, I mean, other than, like I said, other than the apartment, I don't think you would need use variance. I think it would be a permitted use. So if you want the apartment, you need use. If you could deal without the apartment, it would just be setbacks and, you know, whatever else you came up with in the design process.
You know, the folks,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think that's it on the technical side. You know, board has any comments to the concept?
I don't see where you have enough parking. 30 spaces, you're gonna lose 2 right away for an apartment, and the employees.
How many seats was the restaurant proposed? Yeah.
I figured we were, 40 to 50, I think I listed it. Yeah, 65 and 20, so 84, so 90 would do 30 spaces, but minus 2, so I'm close with the parking. My intent would be to at least be close with the parking and not ask for a big parking variance. I mean, unless you can prove that a fair number of people will be walking here, which you can't guarantee that. It's not really quite urban enough for that. I could adjust the 65 seats and come in conforming. If that's going to be an issue, I have no problem adjusting that total number. So that's why I think I need the 30 spaces or close to it. That would give me 90, and like I said, minus 2, so I'm already at 84. And I'm not too far away. I'm actually at 84, 19 and 65 seats.
I appreciate that we'll meet the intent of the law, but the reality of it is, if you got a bar full of people and all of a sudden they have an event, now you got 100 people looking to park cars.
Right.
And I'm not saying you need 100 spaces, but you're on the pike, you know, and there's not a lot of off-street parking that I'm aware of over there. I'm not trying to rain on the parade, I'm just trying to be practical.
Right.
Because we see what happens with Lester Hart, the businesses that have them when they have events, and, you know, you're gonna have to accommodate these people, or they're gonna be walking in the street, and, you know. No other the adjacent properties are already,
Yes, I believe so. The adjacent one right next to us is occupied, and behind it's residential, across the street residential. Based on you have a copy of it, it's a Google Earth map here on page A2. It shows the one-story building adjacent to our lot, and then it also shows the house really behind our property. On that Hamburg side. So yeah, I mean, the client originally asked for between 40 and 50 seats, so they, I don't have to be at the 65 number. So I know what you're saying. These things, we do a lot of bars, a lot of country clubs events, right? You know, I've had 600 people, buildings are meant to have 200 people, I know what you're talking about, so. The intent is though, is to make it reasonable in size, because it's not looking for a huge kitchen, it's not looking for a huge operation. It's not a fast food chain restaurant. I'm not trying to turn out like, you know, an Olive Garden or something like that, where you're looking to burn and turn seats, you got 1 million people through there. Just looking to do a nice facility that can be run by a moderate sized staff. So he was asking that 40 to 50 seat range. And then the bar, it's not so much to have a bar, you know, obviously nightclub type of thing, but it's really just to add value to the check for the restaurant. It adds another third to your value. It makes it a nicer experience for a lot of people. I put it on the street side also just to show activity, but I don't need a huge number of seats in there. So I'll be sensitive to that. We'll research how much street parking is available and the context in which those people will be walking and make sure we can accommodate it. I have no problem downsizing that occupancy to make it more reasonable. You can only service so many people with that size kitchen anywhere. You're not looking for a massive kitchen.
I like the concept, if you could make it work for, you know, if you got some engineering hurdles, you can make it work, it passes, you know, Ryan's test on your stormwater runoff and setbacks and everything else. I'm fine with it, I think, it'd be a great addition to the city, having a commercial property.
I agree, and I would ask a question of it. How do the owners feel about the neighboring business?
I don't know.
Would there be any kind of buffer that you put between?
We would do whatever the town wanted to do. I don't know what the town situation is in that business, and, you know, so I assume it's not a positive, but we certainly could buffer it. We probably have some site triangle issues on the corner, and we probably can't landscape too much towards the street side, but we would certainly buffer the porch off to that side, and I could even make it more solid on that side, so, yeah, I think on our part, we would look to, you know, at least block half of it.
That might be a good property for you to purchase and make more parking.
I'll talk to them. I don't know how well funded they are.
Well, there'll be parking in there a lot.
I don't know if it's for sale or if it, you know, magically gets condemned or something, it's up for sale. I don't know the local politics of it. I wouldn't even pretend to know, so.
The business is not going anywhere unless the building were to fall down.
Okay. I mean, the size of the property is adequate for what they're looking to do. Yeah, it's an adult store, I guess, what shows on Google Earth. I have not gone in person, for the record. Yeah, like I said, based on what they want to do, they've run some delis and stuff, and they really enjoy the food business. They're looking for a local neighborhood restaurant to do some high quality stuff, and they're looking to be good neighbors. That's why they asked me to come down here first before we hired the engineers and go down a long path. Lawyers and engineers and planners and testify to things that nobody wants. Find out what the sensitivities are and make it a positive for everybody.
Where the owners from?
Up New Brunswick area, just north. I'm from the central Jersey area. I work at a Red Bank area generally. A lot of our work, I've been practicing for 32 years, Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey. But most of my practice is half commercial and half upper-end residential homes, mostly in Monmouth County. We go, you know, we'll go all over the place, North Jersey, South Jersey, but for the most part, we're in Monmouth County.
Questions?
I think it's a good idea, it can make it work.
Okay. Yeah, we'll certainly work through the technical parts first. We'll work with Mr. McGowan and make sure we have the right we'll design, because the stormwater projects, we've done projects where we've done car dealerships, and those systems come back $500,000 and $600,000. So I'm very sensitive to what they cost. You're absolutely right, they can be deal breakers at the last minute, so we're not looking to do that. But we'll work through all those things. I'll get a good survey of the property, get some good information, and then, and bring it back to you. But we'll, if no one has a real major obstacle with the owner's apartment, it's not open for general, it's almost like a senior thing, it's with some sort of restriction on the apartment where it's not a market rate unit, and it's, the person is associated with the restaurant, I think is a good idea. It's never a bad thing to have someone there watching things going on, it's a security thing. That's why I told them the 2 apartments, you add another whole complexity to it. Now it's an apartment complex, it changes the nature of it. And a lot of the older restaurants that we're renovating already have an apartment above them, and that's generally good urban planning. You have people living around commercial stuff, you have a set of eyes on it, around the clock, and generally it's safer and better. So from a planning point of view, I think it's good. Yeah, we'll look through those things, and I'll look to bring something back to you within a couple of months.
Okay, so, Mr. Monroe, I understand that you're here to take the temperature of the board, and I don't like these informals because it kind of puts us on the spot. But being you're here, and you've heard the warm, I'm going to be lukewarm to cold, okay? And with all due respect, I love the project, it's a great idea, I'd like to see the corner developed. However, I'm not right, I'm fussy, okay? And I think I know everything. And I know that I don't, but I still have to speak my mind. I don't like the apartment, okay? I'm not in favor of the apartment, I wish it didn't have an apartment. And there's reasons for that I'm not gonna discuss. And having looked at plans for 20 years, and I'm not an engineer, and I don't know water calculations and all that, but I can look at a drawing, and I can proportion sizes, and I see what's going on, and I don't think you have enough property here for parking, and the business, and transient takeout stuff, and that kind of thing. Now you got an apartment, you're gonna take up a couple of spaces. I think you're trying to do too much in too small of a space. Now, I know, as I said, it meets the intent of the law, and we could, give variances and all that, but I'm just telling you how I feel. Once we see plans and that kind of stuff, and if they're serious about it, I can be softened, but my first take at it, my knee jerk is, there's not enough room here to do this, because I think you're gonna get surprised when you start doing the drainage calculations, you're gonna run out of space real quick. I could be wrong, but it's the impetus behind this is not somebody that wants to be in the restaurant business. It's a guy with money and a real estate developer who wants to build something, and he bought this property at a fire sale. And I'm just being upfront, frank with you, that's just my opinion. I don't know the opinion of the board, but that's just the way that I feel, because they've had a campaign here to unload a bunch of properties in town that were questionable as to whether they were able to be developed or not. And I don't know that the city owns any more of that property around there, but I think what you're trying to do here is too small in this piece of property. And again, I'm just one voice here, but
No, I appreciate it. No, his intention's to be owner operator. He doesn't realize how much work goes into these types of things. Tough business.
well, this is a $600,000 project.
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing a number out there. Again, I'm not an expert, but I'm probably not far off.
No, you're not far off.
Maybe even more. So, you want it to work, and you want it to be accepted by the town, and you don't want it to turn into, all of a sudden, a guy comes down the pike and there's cars parked on both sides of Hamburg Avenue.
Right.
Because I can just see it happening. And, I'm always, reaching for the fatal flaw, but that's what we have to live with when it's all over and done with. So I'm not trying to dissuade you or whatever, I'm just telling you that's just one opinion of mine. And the other thing is that if you're going to design any of this stuff, the trash enclosure is the most important thing that you can design in this facility. Nothing outside, the grease, the trash, the cardboard, everything has got to be in an enclosure, and the enclosure closed, so that you can't see any of that stuff. And
Fireproof enclosure.
fireproof enclosure,
It's
uh,
important, it's required.
that's very important, that's big enough, because it's a big problem with older properties that have developed and didn't get to come back to have the trash situation dealt with. So when we got a new project, that's one of my pet peeves.
You know, I agree 100%. Half of the towns require it, like you do, and it makes sense, because you take all that grease and stuff, and you add water to it, and it starts running out of the enclosure, and it makes a total mess. It's just, so a lot of places, any place that serves food, being enclosed, if it's too close to the building, it's fireproof, and sometimes we'll throw a mini split in there. You know, if you have a lot of people living next to it and you have a trash enclosure, do refrigerated storage. We do that at country clubs all the time. A little bit of money, but money well spent. So, we definitely we're gonna comply with that. I just drew a trash enclosure location, but we'll certainly do that. Any
Any other board members?
I'm just wondering, is the owner married to Tex-Mex?
I honestly don't know. I think so. I'll find out. I just know him, not her, so I don't know, but they're clearly always together, so I assume they have some sort of domicile relationship. I don't know
There's like
exactly.
three, I'm not gonna say they're Tex-Mex, but they're, you know, that type, like Mexican food and things like that. Right on the corner at the Ingalino Center and right on Cincinnati Avenue, there's three.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know what type of food they would be making, but I know there's empanadas, you can buy in several places, nachos, things like that, so
Right.
that might be a consideration.
All right, I'll look at that.
I was gonna be quiet, I gotta say something for listening to Jack. And I agree with some of what he said. I don't agree with all of it, because, I go to many restaurants that are on a much smaller piece of ground than that one is. And, just one off the top of my head is Carluccio's over in Northfield. There's like 10 parking spots there. The place is the busiest thing I've ever seen. It's packed all the time, there's people coming in and out for takeout. So I know it was on an existing piece of ground, and we're talking about building something from the ground up, and all the laws have to be followed for the stormwater and all that. I just believe, I'd hate to see us run a business like yours, potential business, out of town. And that's just my feeling, and I could be wrong, but we're in the business of trying to attract businesses into Acorn City, and doing it the right way.
Right.
But that's my view.
When you did your seating calculation, was that with the porch, seating on the porch, or that just in the restaurant?
I did roughly by area. I just took roughly that area and divided it. But really, I couldn't fit that many seats in there, because you have waitress areas and other things like that. You need aisleways, you need 36 or 44 inches to clear area between your seats. You need a 19-inch pushback from the tables. All that has to be shown on an egress plan. So, no, it wasn't including that. And then, I don't know how the board, sometimes we do the outdoor area as seasonal outdoor area, and it doesn't count. But you have to be honest about it. Sometimes you're gonna have people outdoors and indoors, or where there's a maximum occupancy where you sit. We do a lot of sidewalk dining, you know, and stuff like that, where it doesn't count. We do porches outside. We do a covered porch. If it's not a great front yard, we do a covered porch in the backyard. Do some radiant heats, and then sometimes they put drop-down leaves, and before you know it, the whole thing's become an addition to the restaurant. So I know what the creep is. I've done restaurants in Red Bank 25 years ago, where we put an awning and they put a drop leaf, and then they took over, and then they tiled the floor and put in air conditioning and sprinklers, and then they put tables outside again. And they crept on it, you know, and it's okay. If it's good for the urban environment and it doesn't cause any problems, I understand it, but I don't wanna be dishonest about it. So, sometimes it doesn't count, and sometimes it does. I would show it as a seasonal outdoor dining that's gonna be used half the year, and would be less dining indoors. However you want that to be calculated, I can go over that, we can discuss that, how the proper, I'll represent it how you asked me to show it, and we'll show the appropriate amount of seating. I don't mind having a maximum limitation on it, so we don't cause a problem in the neighborhood. And then some of these things are passed with a zoning restriction, where if there is, you know, there's a table layout, and there's an assumption of how many people will be using it at once, and if it's not followed, then it becomes a zoning enforcement issue. and it can be dealt with easily enough if it creates an attractive nuisance. So our goal is not to have that happen, but I would hate to lose the option for the outdoor dining. I think it's, you know, can be one of the nicest features of it, you know.
This is just something off the wall and a change in direction. Why do you put a Chick-fil-A in there? Everybody's laughing. You can't get in them places.
Yeah.
I know it's not exactly the right location because of the downtown, but if you've noticed anything about Chick-fil-A over the last couple of years, it's become more of a takeout thing than it is a go in and sit down restaurant, although a lot of people do that. So it would be the only Chick-fil-A on Route 30 between Lindenwald or whatever, and I don't even think there's anything down here on Route 30. So, that would be the spark that would start a gateway development in that area. I guarantee you move a Chick-fil-A in, they're gonna be backed up at lunchtime.
I'll mention it. A lot of times we do that in a small town and they'll wind up with pitchforks behind me. You mention the word fast food and you get run out of the room, you know, within an hour, so. It's, you know, there's no bad development, like you said, you want development, you know, the cities are growing or they're dying, there's no in between, nothing stays the same, so. I appreciate, you know, we went through that in a lot of our towns we work in. You wanna attract residential development, you wanna attract density, and then you wanna attract uses for it. So I'll mention it to them, I'll pass all these comments on. I appreciate the comments. I mean, I'll pass everything along.
Thank you.
If I may, I just want to say, I'm not lukewarm, definitely warm. I don't want to change what vision they have for their own property. It should be what they want to do. However, I do think there are some impediments that you can work through. Selfishly, I would definitely love if they expanded the property. But other than that, personally, I've definitely been in restaurants on a smaller footprint. In Mays Landing, you know, I would walk to a restaurant that was near the court, and it was, definitely did not have 30 spots, right? But the restaurant was fantastic, and I would go there again for the food. So if someone's gonna build a restaurant in Egg Harbor City, I want people to go there for the food, not because it's ample parking. So I would hope that, you know, if that's something, you know, you need a variance for, great. But I would hope that they have a vision that they can.
That's my impression, is that they have a level of food that they wanna do this and actually wanna run it and cook. And people, like I said, they get the bug, and you know, there is a passion behind it. I
I would
understand
support
passion.
that. Anybody wants to come to Egg Harbor City and bring your passion, I support that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
I would prefer the type of restaurant that you are proposing than a Chick-fil-A, because I think Egg Harbor needs something that's decent, that better than the diner, for people to go. I would probably have my events there rather than looking elsewhere to have events. So I would welcome it if we can meet all of the necessary items that have to be met before it can actually come to life. So I would agree with our chairman that we need more land. I think we need a little bit more property. I think it's too small, because today, you know that if you invite somebody over for a little get-together with family, you have more cars than you do family.
Now, we'll look at that. I'll look at the intensity use and find out what the critical number of people they need for their vision. Maybe a 30 or 40 seat turnover turned over 2.5 times a night, 100 dinners might be enough to make that work. So I'll run through their business model first to make sure it's gonna be successful, and I'll ratchet down that number to keep it reasonable.
There's no wetlands here, is there?
I don't think so. Clay, one of the few spots where there's not wetlands.
Sure, there's clay down there. I'm sure there's something like that.
Any other from the board? Mr. Monroe, any other?
No, I think that was very helpful. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for coming down.
All right, thank you very much.
Old business? Council, anything?
Well, we're pushing forward towards the finish line on the water treatment plant, which we're all exhausted with that endeavor, but it's looking good, and I do wanna say, Ryan is the hero of Egg Harbor City. Okay, you missed it when I said it at council,
I did.
but we would have had to pay back $3 to $5 million of grant recapture, and Ryan being the person that he is, went above and beyond the call of duty to petition the USDA to rethink their calculations and how they do the repayment method. And we got word just the other day that they agree that we should not have to pay anything back. So that's a big plus. That's a real big plus. And once we do, we have a spreadsheet showing exactly where all the money that we're getting from the treatment plant is going, and one of them, which is probably, most important to the taxpayers, that we are gonna pay off our city debt. It's going to be a line item that it will pay, even though some of the loans are not callable at this time, the money will be set aside to pay the debt.
Great.
And then fortunately, because of Ryan's work, we'll have money left over, and we are gonna be able to pay for that fire truck, the ladder truck. So, that's some good news there. That's all.
Public comment? Anyone from the public? Dan?
There's nothing on TV next Tuesday night between 6 and 8 p.m., so I'm inviting all of you to a Zoom meeting. The Green Team is having New Jersey Institute of Technology Technical Assistance for Brownfields Communities. They're going to be doing a seminar to let us know what can be done with some of our brownfields. We have 11 in our city, small sites, you know where they are. And there's a lot of funding coming down from the federal government to get them cleaned up. There's funding available for property owners to clean up their properties. So they're gonna run through all that stuff. So I would like the planning board people to attend if you're available. I think I sent a flyer to you
Everybody got
guys. Did you
emails.
get that? So, and if you wanna register in advance for this, just go to sustainableehc.org. It's right on the front page of our website. Just put your name and I'll send you the link to the meeting.
So, I only know a couple. Where are the 11 Brownsfield?
Well, I can't say off the top of my head, but I know that they're all on Philadelphia Avenue and they're all on the White Horse Pike. So, and these are areas where we need to develop. Obviously, that gentleman came in, and I think there's stuff that we could do as a city to get them ready to be used, instead of just sitting there fallow. There's one right in the middle of 100 block of Philadelphia Avenue.
Yeah.
That's just sitting there. I'd like to see something done with that. I don't know about how you feel about it, but I'd like to see it cleaned up and put back to good use. There's the one at Ottie's, a candy store. I think there was a gas station there. I think there's one at Cheaters, was a gas station there at one time. There's the one at the front of the Acme. There's the building on Buffalo Avenue, South Buffalo, and a couple others. And the Green Team this is a Sustainable Jersey action item. So if we go through these actions, we get points, and it gives us points towards our certification. We're due for recertification next year. We need 150 points. If we did these, if we're going to do these actions, it'll generate about 35 points. But I think the information that's gleaned from this seminar might be more helpful than the points, to tell you the truth.
So is there grant money through this process?
There's lots of money, and that's what they're gonna go through. This is a special unit that was established at New Jersey Institute of Technology to help small communities. You know, they will hold your hand and walk you through it, is what I was told. So I'd like to hear more from them, so I'd like you guys to come if you're available. And
That's the sites.
Yeah, I have, we're doing, one of the actions is to do a brownfields inventory, which I started, and I think Ryan sent me a list. That's what we know is contaminated, but I'm sure there's others, you know, it's an industrial city at one time. So there's probably other sites that we're not aware of. And the more information we could put into this document, it'll be an online document that you could just keep adding to as you find out more information. That's one of the actions that we're going to do. The next action up would be to do investigations and prioritize which sites you would like to work on. I know off the top of my head what I would like, but I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks. You know, how do we prioritize where we should go to, you know, start working on this stuff? And what else? And the next action is to market these properties to developers. We have a lot going for us here in Egg Harbor City. I don't think people realize we are, you know, we have the NPP zone, which is on Philadelphia Avenue, which is a great opportunity to develop the Philadelphia Avenue area, but we're also an opportunity zone, which provides tax incentives to investors. These people are coming here because they're gonna save a lot of money on taxes, in their personal taxes. So we have to promote that more. So if we can develop a marketing plan with a marketing company, and there's grants available I can apply for to pay for these things, but you gotta start somewhere. And the first step would be to hear what these people at NJIT have to say. So if you could come, that'd be great.
Thanks, Nick.
Did you have a question?
You sent me the link?
Yeah.
I will be there.
Nope.
On Zoom.
Yeah, it's on Zoom, so, and it'll be recorded, so if you can't make the meeting, you could, we'll post it on our website, you can watch it later.
Thanks, Nick. Any other comments from the board?
I have a question. What's going on with the bunk? Anything?
That, I just got 2 letters from,
Philadelphia Avenue one?
oh, yeah, one from Boosterwick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got 2 letters from Ann from the, what was it, DOT?
Yes.
They didn't have any problems, I think they kind of are signed off on it, but then another one came that, Ryan's not our engineer project.
Yeah.
There was a conflict, so CME is, so I think there's a whole, like a 4-page document that I just, stating what they need and submit to them. Maybe you can explain it better than I can, but it is moving quite slowly.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a tree drop, there could be a potential tree drop.
Yeah, we're still looking for our threatened endangered species surveys from Connecticut High School and the subdivision and all that.
Yeah, but we don't know where the area is, did you talk to Mike?
I did talk to him, he didn't know offhand if it was down by the lake or down closer to the residential area.
So if it's a T&E issue, then they're gonna do a spring study probably.
Yeah,
It's spring now, so.
I was gonna say they're seasonal, so you just
Yeah.
gotta hit the right season. Yeah, but the last I saw, Jody put together an RFP for construction inspection services, but I don't think they're near even quite yet, so I think she was just going through the steps outlined by me.
But that second paper they sent, Ryan, what was?
I don't know, I got the email, but I
It was so
didn't.
Trying to pick that one trailer up. It's been a few days.
Can we go back to the Dollar General? It's cleaned up right now, and there's nothing outside except there's carts outside, Don, that have been there for months, empty carts that are just there. And I hate to pick the fly flew out of the pepper, but nothing is to be stored outside.
Yeah, but when did they show up?
They've been there for weeks, for months.
They just took pictures, there was nothing out
They
there.
didn't take pictures of them because it's on the other side, they're up by the back door of the thing. You know, I hate to be finicky, but you know, it's very clear that there is still stuff outside. And that being said, this property has been, I have pictures going back to 2017 that we've been battling these people to keep their trash where it belongs. And I don't think we've ever done any enforcement. I mean, taking them to court, I know we've been over there and talked to them, we wrote letters and all that. I don't think they've ever been cited before now. And I know that they're going to court. I don't know, Steve had the date on there. So is somebody from code enforcement going to be at that hearing?
So Steve's in the hospital.
What's that?
So,
Well, this is a question for the engineer and the attorney. Can we compel them to make their trash enclosure bigger? Because their business model is not working.
My thought is that there's gotta be an ordinance that they're violating. There's
Well,
trucks all over and stuff
they're
like
in
that.
violation of their resolution in that nothing was to be stored outside and anything that was to be in the enclosure with the doors closed. And that's not what happens. They leave the doors open and they roll the carts out there. See, they don't have any trash pickup to speak of. All that stuff goes back on the transporter that's bringing the goods for the next thing there. So that last mess that was out there, blue cardboard all over the neighborhood. Go look at the corner of Baltimore and White Horse Pike. All that stuff that blows off of them carts goes down the pike and winds up somewhere else. And then they clean it up and it's fine for a couple of days. But if they're out there again, Donna, we gotta do something about it. So we're not gonna solve the problem by constantly harping on them to do it. They either gotta build their enclosure bigger or they have to change their method of trash handling. Because every property that they own is the same way. You go by any Dollar General, drive around back, and look what they got out there. You go down Galloway, same thing. As a matter of fact, the wind the other day blew all the carts knocked over. So what happens to all that cardboard that's on there? They think that, you know, they're not supposed to be responsible for that. I know what happens to it. It blows into the neighbor's property. This has been going on for years. This is what, 2023, 2017, and I didn't even go back to all my pictures. I've got pictures that I've been taking from the day that they built it, and they've been hardcore into compliance. So,
and they have dead trees that they should replace. So I did ask Steve to look at that, but I don't know what happened.
can we send them a letter from the attorney to restate what it is that they're supposed to be doing, or from the engineer, or do we just wait until there's a violation again and you know, fix it after the fact?
I mean, it's been repeated, the same things that you've been citing and noting and have evidence of over and over and over. I think we could probably highlight the conditions of the resolution and say if they can continue non-compliance, either we need to make some kind of material change. And then if they don't, then you have to follow up and continue to cite them.
Yeah, I agree. Have they been cited at all?
They had road stickers twice on the
Was.
road. And
Well,
then- and then
they've got a
they-
violation now and a scheduled court appearance on the 20-something of April, I think.
He was scheduled for a Zoom court, and he went there and refused.
I'm talking about Dollar General.
Oh, Dollar General.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, we went in Dollar General once, that was it.
Making the enclosure bigger, is that, will that solve the problem?
Well, I mean, to Jack's point, they literally just don't have enough room in there. They pile a bunch of stuff in there and it's overflowing out the doors. In fact, I just pulled up Google Earth, the doors are wide open on the trash enclosure on the Google Earth photo. So it's a pretty typical condition. So, yeah, I mean,
So they're trying to keep their stock, and then they don't have any room for the stock because all all the carts with the trash are on them, so they push the carts with the trash outside, and they're not worried about that, because the manager don't care that that stuff is going all over the thing, or he would've done something about it.
Well, the problem is I talked to I don't know if he's still there, Sean Wackett, his name is. He said that, he only gets like 120 hours a week, and he can't go over that, so they have, it's just, they literally have to close the store to do any work, so I guess that's what they're doing now. So that's the problem, they don't have the help to do what they have to do. But now at least we have a corporate contact. Before we didn't, thank you, Donna.
Enough room to pack corner of the parking lot, put a chain link cage up, or put all this carts and everything. You go across the parking lot, throw it in that chain link, that's in area.
Well, I mean,
Can we give up a couple parking spots that nobody's using back there?
they should, if they're storing it outside, it needs to be enclosed in something. I mean, it shouldn't, whether it's a trash enclosure or a shed or whatever. You're allowed to store things outside on commercial property.
Variance.
Yeah, right, I mean, they're,
Supposed to store it.
I think their approval
I know.
specifically says that.
No, I understand what the problem is, but, so do we offer a solution where we give them a variance to close in 3 parking spots so they can push the carts somewhere where they're not blowing around and it's contained?
We won't even go into the drainage basin they have back there. How long did it take us to get them to do that, Jack? I don't even know if it's still done. I don't even know if it drains.
They came in and remediated it, I think, twice. And the street view photo is dry, that was taken September 22, so 6 months ago or so. But yeah, that was a big deferral. Yeah, they've not been the best, corporate neighbors, that's for sure. So, very disjointed ownership and management model. So difficult to blame that. But yeah, I don't see any reason we can't go back through the resolution, highlight the items of continued noncompliance, highlight the fact that they have to restore all the vegetation, because we're missing like 6 trees that died and removed. And just say, look, we need all these things back in compliance, or we're gonna start citing them. Now we have a corporate contact, that's somebody who would actually be responsible for that, not just a sort of hang trees and what's like. So we can work on prepping that and getting that letter out there.
I'd appreciate that if the board's in agreement.
I have one other thing. I'm with you, Jack, be as fussy as you can, because everybody just dumps on Egg Harbor City. And the main thing we have to do is clean up. And even the, corporations that are running some of these businesses, they're making their money. They obviously making money if they have a lot of trash. So they're moving a lot of product. So they should be cleaning up and taking care of our town. But I just wanted to mention today, the Green Team also had a meeting with, what's his name, Culkin, Dr. John Culkin. He's the cannabis facility on Moss Mill Road. And, what's that, what'd you say? Coolin, is that what it is? And we had a meeting with him and people from, I guess it was the BPU, someone from the BPU, to give them leads on how to get all these incentives because they're a new facility, they're gonna have to be using a lot of energy. And went through a lot of things like horticulture lighting, they have LEDs for them, and they get rebates and incentives back, up to $4 million for each facility. So it was a really productive meeting, I thought, and he said that as soon as he gets his Pine Lanes approval, he's hoping to break ground in May. So as long as he can get his problems with the stormwater
This is the
management.
high grass?
Yes, high grass farms. And it was a really good meeting, and, Sustainable Jersey has a lot of fingers out there. People think all we do is plant trees, but that's just one thing. So putting this kind of stuff together is very rewarding, especially if they build a business that's gonna be so energy efficient that they're not gonna increase our carbon footprint. He also mentioned that he would like to find some way to get permit to do composting on site. Or he may buy another property to do composting of the refuse, instead of seeing it go into a landfill. So he sounds like he's very environmentally conscious, and I was excited to hear that he's ready to go in May, so I just wanted to pass that on.
He's still waiting